What if I told you the people who laughed at you, doubted you, and treated you like easy prey are about to witness the biggest mistake of their lives? For years they looked at you and saw weakness. They saw silence and thought it was surrender. They saw your patience and called it fear. They watched you struggle, stumble, and suffer, and they believed your story was already written. But here's what they never understood. The strongest people don't reveal their power when the world is watching. They build it in the dark. Every betrayal became fuel. Every rejection became training. Every sleepless night forged a stronger mind. While they were busy judging you, you were transforming. While they were celebrating your failures, you were sharpening your edge. And now, something has changed. The same person they underestimated is no longer searching for approval, no longer afraid of challenges, no longer willing to live beneath their potential. There comes a moment when a wounded soul becomes unstoppable, when pain turns into power, when the prey becomes the predator. And when that moment arrives, the people who once ignored you don't feel confidence anymore. They feel fear. So buckle up, because today we're diving into the mindset, psychology, an unstoppable transformation that turns ordinary people into forces that cannot be broken. They looked at your silence and made a decision about who you were. They saw you stay calm when others were loud. They watched you walk away from arguments you could have won. They noticed that you didn't fight for attention, didn't demand recognition, and didn't spend your time proving yourself to people who had already made up their minds. In their eyes, your silence became evidence. Evidence that you were weak. Evidence that you were afraid. Evidence that you lacked the courage to stand up for yourself. What they never understood is that silence and weakness are not the same thing. Weak people react to everything. They lose control over every insult, every criticism, and every challenge that comes their way. They allow other people's opinions to dictate their emotions. They become prisoners of every negative word spoken about them. But strong people understand something different. They understand that not every battle deserves their energy. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every person deserves access to their mind. You stayed silent because you were observing. While others were talking, you were learning. While others were showing off, you were improving. While others were trying to convince the world of their greatness, you were quietly building yours. Every moment they spent seeking validation was a moment you spent developing strength that couldn't be seen on the surface. People often underestimate what they cannot understand. The world has a strange habit of rewarding noise. The loudest voice in the room gets attention. The person who constantly talks about success appears important. The individual who broadcasts every achievement seems powerful. Because of this, many people assume that true strength must always announce itself, but real strength doesn't need an introduction. A mountain doesn't tell anyone how tall it is. An ocean doesn't explain how deep it is. They simply exist in their power. In the same way, people with genuine strength don't waste their energy convincing others of their value. They know who they are even when nobody else does. The people around you confused your self-control with insecurity. They confused your patience with fear. They confused your humility with weakness. They saw your ability to remain calm under pressure and assumed you lacked the ability to fight back. That assumption became their biggest mistake. Because every time they underestimated you, you gained an advantage. Every time they overlooked you, you had more room to grow. Every time they dismissed your potential, you were free to develop without distraction. While they focused on appearances, you focused on reality. While they chased attention, you chased improvement. There were moments when their words hurt, moments when their judgment felt unfair, moments when you wanted to explain yourself, defend yourself, or prove them wrong. But something inside you kept moving forward. Something refused to seek approval from people who couldn't see your worth. That decision changed everything. Because the moment you stop living for validation is the moment you begin discovering your real power. You stop asking people to believe in you. You stop waiting for permission to grow. You stop depending on applause to feel valuable. Your confidence begins coming from within rather than from the opinions of strangers. And that kind of confidence is dangerous. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be taken away by criticism or failure. When your belief in yourself is built internally, outside forces lose their ability to shake you. Most people never reach that point. They spend their entire lives chasing acceptance. They measure their value by likes, compliments, recognition, and approval. They become addicted to external validation. Without it, they feel lost. Without it, they feel invisible. But you learned how to keep going even when nobody noticed. You learned how to work hard without applause. You learned how to stay committed without encouragement. You learned how to believe in yourself when evidence was scarce and support was absent. Those lessons created something powerful inside you: resilience. The kind of resilience that cannot be taught in comfort. The kind that only develops through struggle, disappointment, rejection, and solitude. Every challenge strengthened your mindset. Every setback increased your endurance. Every obstacle forced you to become stronger than you were before. Meanwhile, the people who judged you remained focused on the surface. They saw where you were, but they never understood where you were going. They evaluated your current circumstances and assumed they represented your future. They forgot that growth often happens out of sight. A seed buried underground looks lifeless to those who cannot see what is happening beneath the surface. But hidden from view, roots are expanding, strength is developing, and transformation is taking place. By the time the growth becomes visible, the process has already been happening for a long time. You were growing in places they couldn't see, developing discipline, building mental toughness, learning from failure, mastering your emotions, strengthening your character, creating habits that would eventually separate you from everyone who underestimated you. Your silence was never weakness, it was focus. It was discipline. It was patience. It was self-control. It was the decision to invest your energy into becoming stronger instead of wasting it trying to appear strong. Pain has a way of changing a person. Not the kind of pain that lasts for a moment and disappears, but the kind that follows you through sleepless nights, silent battles, broken expectations, and disappointments no one else can see. The kind of pain that forces you to question everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. They run from it, hide from it, and do everything possible to escape it. But sometimes pain finds you anyway. It arrives without warning. It shows up in betrayal, rejection, failure, loss, humiliation, and heartbreak. It enters your life when you least expect it and refuses to leave when you want it gone. At first, it feels unfair. You wonder why you have to carry burdens that others never seem to face. You question why your efforts go unnoticed while others receive rewards. You ask why loyalty is often met with betrayal and why kindness is sometimes answered with disrespect. The weight of those questions can become overwhelming. Here were days when the pressure felt unbearable. Days when it seemed easier to quit than continue. Days when every step forward felt like a fight against an invisible force trying to pull you backward. The world saw your smile, but it never saw the battles happening inside your mind. It never witnessed the moments when you felt exhausted, frustrated, and ready to give up. But pain has a strange secret. It doesn't just destroy, it reveals. It exposes weaknesses that need to be strengthened. It uncovers fears that need to be confronted. It forces you to face parts of yourself that comfort would never reveal. Pain removes illusions. It strips away excuses. It leaves you standing face to face with reality, and reality demands growth. Every disappointment taught you something. Every rejection forced you to become stronger. Every failure exposed areas where improvement was necessary. The lessons were rarely pleasant, but they were valuable. They shaped your mindset in ways success never, or could. Success often makes people comfortable. Pain makes people dangerous. Because when someone survives enough hardship, they stop fearing the things that once intimidated them. The challenges that break others become familiar territory. The obstacles that seem impossible to most people become opportunities to prove what they are capable of enduring. You began developing a different relationship with struggle. Instead of asking why difficult things were happening, you started asking what they were teaching you. Instead of seeing pain as an enemy, you started recognizing it as a teacher. A harsh teacher, an unforgiving teacher, but a teacher capable of creating strength that cannot be built any other way. Every scar carried a lesson. Every setback carried wisdom. Every wound carried experience. The people around you may have seen only the damage. They may have noticed the hardships, the failures, and the moments when life knocked you down. What they failed to notice was what those experiences were creating beneath the surface. They saw suffering. You were developing resilience. They saw struggle. You were building endurance. They saw obstacles. You were creating strength. There is something powerful that happens when a person stops expecting life to be easy. They stop being shocked by difficulties. They stop being controlled by circumstances. They stop viewing challenges as signs to quit. Instead, they begin viewing every challenge as another opportunity to grow stronger. That mindset changes everything. Because once pain becomes fuel, nothing can stop your progress. Every insult becomes motivation. Every betrayal becomes a lesson. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every failure becomes preparation. The very experiences designed to break you begin strengthening you instead. People often fear what they don't understand. They see confidence and assume it came naturally. They see determination and assume it was always there. They see street, NGTH, and assume it was a gift. They never see the years of pain that built it. They never see the nights spent fighting self-doubt. They never see the disappointments that hardened your resolve. They never see the tears, sacrifices, and struggles hidden behind the transformation. Real strength is rarely born from comfort. Comfort creates dependence. Pain creates adaptation. Comfort encourages complacency. Pain demands growth. Comfort allows weakness to remain hidden. Pain exposes it and forces change. That is why some of the strongest people in the world are those who have suffered the most. Not because suffering is desirable, but because surviving it requires transformation. The person who enters hardship is rarely the same person who emerges from it. You were shaped by every challenge you endured. The moments that felt like punishment became preparation. The situations that seemed unfair became training. The experiences that looked like setbacks became part of your DA. Development. Bit by bit, challenge by challenge, pain began forging a version of you that could withstand pressure, overcome adversity, and keep moving forward when others would stop. Your mindset became sharper. Your standards became higher. Your discipline became stronger. Your tolerance for excuses disappeared. The things that once overwhelmed you no longer carried the same power. The fears that once controlled your decisions began losing their grip. The opinions of people who doubted you became less important. The need for approval started fading. Pain changed the way you saw yourself. It showed you that you were capable of surviving more than you imagined. It showed you that strength exists even when confidence disappears. It showed you that persistence matters more than talent. It showed you that resilience can outlast almost anything. What others called suffering was becoming your foundation. What others viewed as damage was becoming armor. What others believed would destroy you was slowly creating someone far more focused, disciplined, and relentless than before. The pain didn't create weakness. The pain built the monster within. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that waiting for the world to change is a waste of time. Waiting for perfect conditions, waiting for support, waiting for opportunities, waiting for someone to believe in them first. Most people spend years trapped in that cycle, hoping that one day everything will magically fall into place. But unstoppable people think differently. They understand that greatness is not something you find, it is something you build. The rise of an unstoppable mindset begins the moment you stop seeing yourself as a product of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the creator of your future. It begins when excuses lose their power over you. It begins when responsibility becomes stronger than fear. For a long time, life may have felt unfair. You may have faced obstacles that others never had to face. You may have experienced setbacks that delayed your progress. You may have watched people with less discipline, less character, and less determination move ahead while you struggled just to stay in the game. Those moments can either break a person or transform them. Many people allow disappointment to convince them that effort is useless. They allow failure to define their identity. They allow criticism to control their decisions. Over time, they become trapped by their own doubts. You chose a different path. Instead of surrendering to adversity, you began learning from it. Instead of becoming bitter, you became stronger. Instead of allowing pain to control your future, you used it as motivation. That decision marked the beginning of a new mindset. An unstoppable mindset is not built overnight. It is created through daily choices. Small choices that seem insignificant at first. Choosing discipline when laziness feels easier. Choosing growth where comfort feels safer. Choosing persistence when quitting feels tempting. Every time you make those choices, you strengthen something inside yourself. You strengthen your standards. You strengthen your character. You strengthen your belief in what is possible. Most people underestimate the power of consistency because they are obsessed with immediate results. They want success instantly. They want transformation without effort. They want rewards without sacrifice. When results do not appear quickly, they lose motivation. But unstoppable people understand something important. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Motivation depends on emotions. Discipline depends on commitment. There will always be days when you feel tired, days when progress feels invisible, days when doubts try to creep into your mind, days when the goal seems far away. The unstoppable mindset keeps moving anyway. It understands that success is not determined by how you perform on your best day. eyes. It is determined by how you respond on your worst days. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. Anyone can stay focused when everything is going well. Anyone can be positive when life is easy. The real test comes when challenges appear. The real test comes when nobody is watching. The real test comes when effort is required without immediate rewards. That is where mental toughness is developed. Mental toughness is not about pretending to be fearless. It is about taking action despite fear. It is about refusing to let uncertainty stop your progress. It is about continuing forward even when confidence temporarily disappears. Fear never completely leaves. Doubt never completely disappears. Challenges never completely stop. The difference is that an unstoppable person no longer allows those things to make decisions for them. They feel fear and keep moving. They experience doubt and keep working. They face obstacles and keep advancing. Over time, this creates a powerful shift. The things that once intimidated you begin losing their influence. The challenges that once seemed impossible become manageable. The obstacles that once looked overwhelming become opportunities for growth. Your perspective changes because your mindset changes. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" You start asking, "What if I succeed?" You stop focusing on limitations. You start focusing on possibilities. You stop seeing barriers. You start seeing pathways. That shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Because your mindset determines how you interpret reality. Two people can face the same challenge and experience completely different outcomes. One sees defeat. The other sees opportunity. One sees hardship. The other sees training. One sees an excuse to quit. The other sees a reason to become stronger. The unstoppable mindset always searches for growth. It refuses to waste energy complaining about circumstances that cannot be changed. It focused. Say yes on action. It focuses on solutions. It focuses on progress. That focus becomes a competitive advantage because most people are distracted. They are distracted by negativity. They are distracted by comparison. They are distracted by the opinions of people who contribute nothing to their goals. Meanwhile, you are building momentum. You are improving skills. You are developing habits. You are strengthening your mind. You are becoming more disciplined with every challenge you overcome. The world often celebrates talent, but talent alone is not enough. Talent without discipline fades. Talent without consistency disappears. Talent without resilience collapses under pressure. The unstoppable mindset turns ordinary ability into extraordinary results because it refuses to quit. It understands that persistence often beats talent. It understands that patience often beats speed. It understands that determination often beats natural advantages. Every challenge you survive adds another layer to your strength. Every setback increases your wisdom. Every obstacle sharpens your focus. Every sacrifice strengthens your commitment. The person you are becoming is no longer controlled by comfort, fear, or the opinions of others. You are becoming someone who moves forward regardless of circumstances. Someone who keeps growing regardless of obstacles. Someone who keeps fighting regardless of setbacks. Someone whose mindset has become stronger than the problems standing in the way. There was a time when they barely noticed you. You were easy to ignore, easy to dismiss, easy to underestimate. People looked at your struggles and assumed they understood your future. They looked at your failures and decided that was all you would ever become. They saw your quiet nature and mistook it for weakness. They saw your patience and confused it with a lack of strength. They believed they had you figured out. That was their first mistake. Because while they were busy reading opinions about you, you were busy creating a new version of yourself. A version they could not see. A version that was developing in silence, growing through adversity, and becoming stronger with every challenge life placed in front of you. Transformation rarely announces itself. Most people expect growth to be obvious. They expect change to happen overnight. They expect success to arrive with warning signs that everyone can recognize. Real transformation doesn't work that way. It happens in private. It happens when nobody is watching. It happens during the difficult moments when giving up would be easier than continuing. The people who underestimated you never saw those moments. They never saw the sacrifices. They never saw the discipline. They never saw the battles inside your mind. They only saw the surface. And the surface never tells the whole story. Every day you were becoming stronger. Every setback was teaching you resilience. Every disappointment was including your determination. Every challenge was sharpening your mindset. While they were standing still, you were evolving. While they were comfortable, you were growing. While they were judging, you were preparing. The difference between who you were and who you are becoming grew larger with every passing day. Eventually, something changed. The person who once needed approval stopped seeking it. The person who once doubted themselves started trusting their abilities. The person who once feared failure started embracing challenges. Confidence began replacing insecurity. Discipline began replacing excuses. Focus began replacing distraction. Strength began replacing hesitation. People started noticing. Not because you announced your growth. Not because you demanded attention. Not because you tried to prove anything. They noticed because results are impossible to hide forever. The same people who once ignored your potential suddenly began paying attention. The same people who laughed at your dreams started questioning their assumptions. The same people who doubted your abilities became curious about your success. Success has a strange effect on people. It forces them to reconsider everything they once believed. The person they viewed as weak now appears strong. The person they underestimated now commands respect. The person they overlooked now stands out. That realization can be uncomfortable. Because when someone proves your assumptions wrong, you are forced to confront your own mistakes. People often become unsettled when they witness someone exceed expectations, especially when those expectations were low, especially when they were the ones responsible for creating those limitations. The growth they ignored has become impossible to deny. The confidence they never expected has become impossible to miss. The strength they never believed existed has become impossible to challenge. Now they see something different when they look at you. They no longer see uncertainty. They no longer see insecurity. They no longer see someone waiting for permission. They see someone who knows their value. They see someone who trusts their abilities. They see someone who cannot be easily controlled by fear, criticism, or doubt. That realization creates discomfort, because strong people change the environment around them. A disciplined person exposes excuses. A confident person exposes insecurity. A focused person exposes distraction. A determined person exposes laziness. Without saying a word, your transformation becomes a mirror. It forces others to examine their own choices. It forces them to question their own limitations. It forces them to confront the gap between where they are and where they could be. Some people will feel inspired by your growth. Others will feel threatened by it. Not because you are harming them, not because you are attacking them, but because your success reminds them of the effort they refused to make. Your discipline reminds them of opportunities they wasted. Your confidence reminds them of fears they never confronted. Your resilience reminds them of challenges they avoided. That is why growth often changes relationships. The people who were comfortable with the old version of you may struggle to understand the new one. The people who benefited from your self-doubt may feel uncomfortable around your confidence. The people who expected you to stay the same may resist your evolution. Your transformation challenges their expectations. Your progress destroys the story they created about you. The version of you they once knew no longer exists. The person who accepted disrespect has changed. The person who settled for less has changed. The person who doubted their own potential has changed. You have become stronger through hardship, wiser through failure, more focused through adversity, more disciplined through sacrifice, more resilient through pain. The world responds differently when it encounters someone who has conquered their own limitations. Because external challenges become less intimidating after internal battles have been won. A person who has mastered their mindset becomes difficult to stop. A person who no longer fears failure becomes difficult to control. A person who believes in themselves becomes difficult to discourage. The people who once viewed you as easy prey are now witnessing the consequences of every lesson, every struggle, every sacrifice, and every moment of growth they never noticed. They are witnessing the emergence of someone they no longer recognize. Someone stronger, someone sharper, someone more dangerous than they ever imagined. Someone who no longer needs validation. Someone who no longer seeks approval. Someone who no longer waits for opportunities. Someone who creates them. Someone whose presence alone forces others to think twice. Someone whose confidence cannot be shaken by criticism. Someone whose determination cannot be broken by obstacles. Someone whose mindset has become a force that commands attention, respect, and caution. Now they understand what they failed to see all along. You were never weak. You were becoming powerful.